Hi everyone and welcome to Book Boop. My name is Rachel and today I have a book haul for you. So I have a lot of books here. I got over 20 books, mainly because I haven't done a book haul since my birthday book haul in September. So it's been quite a while and I've accumulated a lot of books since then. I've got some middle grade, some YA, and an adult. So I'm trying to kind of separate them all according to those particular age ranges, but let's go ahead and jump in so this video is not like a million minutes long. So the first one I've got here is The Keeper of Lost Cities by Shannon Messenger. This series is a middle grade series that I've heard a lot about and I've heard it's so good, and it's several books long. I think there are still books coming out in the series, but they're all chunkers, so I've heard so many good things about them. I don't know much except for following this girl who is living kind of in the normal human world, and then she finds out that she's actually, I think, part elf, and she has some kind of like magical powers, and she ends up going to a magical school, I believe, and it goes on from there, which I love the magical school trope. Most people do. People love Harry Potter, and it kind of reminds them of that Harry Potter vibe, but I've heard this is great. It has wonderful friendships in it, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited to get to this series at some point, even though it is a little scary to get into because there's so many books and they're all freaking huge. After that, I have The Midler by Kirsty Applebaum. This one I really don't know that much about, but it sounded really intriguing. So it sounds like this almost, I don't know about like post-apocalyptic type future or something like that, but we have this city that is surrounded by a wall, and the people in the city are told not to really communicate or talk to anyone that's outside of the city walls. They're supposed to be considered dangerous and strange, and it's about these two girls from opposite sides of the wall, and they end up meeting and becoming friends, and that's really all I know about it. I think it's supposed to be probably a little heart-wrenching, but I think it's going to be great, and I'm really interested in seeing what this one is all about. After that is one that I've actually read and I purchased because I absolutely loved it. It was probably one of the most cozy books I've ever read in my life, and that is Pages & Co. The Book Wanders by Anna James. This is the first book in the Pages & Co. series. Just the basic idea of this series is we follow this little girl who finds out that she's a book wanderer, which means that she can actually go inside her favorite books and actually even pull some of her favorite characters out. So we get to meet Anna Green Gables, Alice in Wonderland, and even other popular famous characters, and it's so fun to see her interact with our favorite characters from when we were kids, and it's fun to see her walk into their worlds as well. It's unbelievably cozy. It takes place in London, and her parents, she lives with her grandparents, and they own this 3-story bookstore in London that has like a coffee shop in it, and there's all these cozy chairs and fireplaces, and it's unbelievably cozy. So I highly recommend it. It's such a fun series. This next one here is one that I think has been a booktube darling for a while now, and I still have yet to read it, but it has an award slapped on the front here, and I know it's supposed to be really good, and that is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. In this story, we follow this village that for every certain amount of years, I don't know if it's every year, they kind of sacrifice a child to a nearby witch that they think kind of appeases the witch to do that. So they leave a child in the woods. The only thing is the witch has no earthly idea why these people do this. They keep leaving children in the woods. Why did they do that? So she takes the baby in, takes care of it, and then finds a family that will adopt the child and take care of it and love it. Well, she ends up taking this little girl in that was left in the woods, and she accidentally feeds her moonlight, which gives her magical powers, and so the witch actually adopts her as her own, and it's about this little girl's story, and it's supposed to be really heartwarming, and I've heard it's also like sad, and there's just a lot of good, wonderful things about this middle grade story, so I'm excited to get into it and see what all the hype is about. After that is A Tale of Magic by Chris Colfer. This is the first book in his kind of prequel series to the Land of Story series, which I have here. Land of Story series is like a giant mashup of tons of different fairy tales, so if you are a fairy tale fan, you will love this series. But this is his prequel series he's now created that pretty much follows the beginnings of this magical world that we find in Land of Stories. We were following the fairy godmother and her origin story, and it's a lot of fun. His world building is fantastic. There's so much action adventure. It's nonstop. So if you love fairy tales, I highly recommend it. And this is the first one in that. There are 2 out, I think, and a third one coming out this year. So I'm not sure how long the series is going to be, but I am so for it. It's so much fun. This one was my most anticipated release of 2021. I've already read it. I freaking adored it. And that is Bridge of Souls by Victoria Schwab. This is the third book in the Cassidy Blake or City of Ghosts series. In this series, we were following this girl who has she recently had a near-death experience. Hi, Moon Moon. My sweet boy's over here trying to distract me. Hi, Bubba. She has a near-death experience, and because of this, now she is able to kind of see in the land of the dead, which she can see and communicate with ghosts. Her best friend is a ghost, and I adore him. He's a sweet cinnamon roll of a ghost boy, and I will die for him. He is so sweet. The fun thing about this series is the fact that this girl's parents, they actually have a television show where they go to the most haunted places in the world, and they talk about all these hauntings and the historical things behind them. And so we kind of travel along with them. The first book, they're in Edinburgh, Scotland. The second book, they're in France, in the catacombs underneath Paris. And in this one, they are in New Orleans. And so it's a lot of fun to travel along with them and learn some history about these real haunted places and just have a lot of creepy fun with this girl and her ghost friend. And I love it. I adore it. It's middle grade and it's ghosty. There's nothing else that I love more. I have one more middle grade book that I actually do not have with me, and that is Hollowpox by Jessica Townsend. That is the third book in the Nevermore series. My sweet sister-in-law is actually borrowing right now. I got her into that series and she is loving it. I really enjoyed Hollowpox a lot. I'm not going to tell you very much about it since it's the third book in a series, but if you haven't heard about the Nevermore series, it's about this young girl who was born on the most lucky day of the year, and because of that, she is blamed for everything in her town. Even if someone stubs their toe, they blame her for it because she's the unlucky one in the town and causes all the unlucky things that happen. The worst part about her unluckiness is the fact that she is supposed to die on her 11th birthday. It's either 11th or 12th birthday. She knows this. Everybody knows this. And so her impending birthday of death is coming. And when she thinks she's going to die, this man comes from this place called Nevermore named Jupiter North. And he comes and whisks her away to Nevermore, where she tries to basically try out to be in the Wondrous Society, which is a magical school. So it's a lot of fun. It's so sweet and such a fun action-packed series, so I highly recommend it. But Hollowpox was a blast and had a lot of parallels to 2021, very creepily. I mean 2020. It had to do with a pandemic. So how did Jessica Townsend see that coming? That's just disturbing. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the YA books. Several of these YA books I have actually read, and they are ones that were my favorites, either from 2020 or from 2019, and I finally got them in my collection. One of those is The Bone Houses by Emily Lloyd Jones. First of all, appreciate this cover. It's beautiful. I love it. This is everything I love in a story. I gave it 5 stars and loved it so much. In this story, we were following this young woman, and she is the grave digger and caretaker of a graveyard in this small village. That is what she does for her livelihood. Her family has always done this. But there's something strange about this particular graveyard. This graveyard, the dead don't always stay dead. Sometimes they come out of their graves and wander around. And it's been a little strange and something that the village has just sort of dealt with. The dead haven't really done anything dangerous. They kind of just wander around and come out of their graves, which is a little disturbing. But then some of these bone houses, what they call them, these people that kind of come back to life, they start becoming violent, and we don't know why. And then these bone houses also start coming out from the nearby woods. I guess people that have died within the woods start coming out and trying to attack people in the village. And so this girl goes on a quest to go into the forest to figure out what is going on, where are these bone houses coming from, why are they becoming violent. And I really loved it. I love quest type stories. I loved the creepiness of these sort of like creepy zombie type things, and I loved the main character because she was so BA and she was just a go-getter, and I really loved her, and she was fantastic. So I highly recommend this book. It was so good. All right, next is another one of my favorites that I absolutely adored because it's so dark and spooky, and it's a retelling, and that is House of Salt and Sorrows by Erin A. Craig. This is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses, and it is a very dark retelling. So in the original kind of 12 Dancing Princesses, we have these 12 sisters who every night they go off to a ball basically and dance the night away, but nobody knows where they go. They keep coming back and their like shoes keep falling apart because they're dancing so much. And So that's sort of like the basic idea of the original fairy tale. It's kind of not one that's as well known, but in this story, we are following all these sisters. Has to do with the 12 dancing princesses, yes, but each sister is kind of like dying in really horrible and like questionable ways. And one of the sisters feels like that she's probably going to be next, and the whole village they live in thinks they're cursed, and so she starts basically trying to figure out what's going on. Why are all my sisters dying from these horrible circumstances? And is the family really cursed? And why are we all dying? And it was fantastic. It's set in this sort of seaside town. This family lives in this big, dark manor next to the sea. There's lots of thunderstorms, and it's like the perfect book to read during sort of like rainy weather and thunderstorms. It's so good. I adored this so much. I love creepy retellings. It just makes me so happy. And the cover is gorgeous as well. This next one is one I haven't read, and I ended up getting this one at our at my book club Christmas party. We did a book exchange type thing, and this one isn't one I was originally interested in, but I've heard a lot of good things about it, so I'm interested to see what I think about it. It's another retelling, and that is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmer. I don't really know much about this other than the fact that it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I think there's a girl who ends up getting sucked into a magical world, and that's where I guess Beauty and the Beast plays out. I really legitimately don't know much about it. It sounded a little kind of like angsty, and it sounded like there was some court politics type of things, which is not something I'm normally into, but I'm interested to getting into this series. It's a trilogy. All 3 books are out now, and it's got a lot of booktube love, so I'll have to try it out and see what I think about it. So sounds interesting. These next 2 are ones I was so excited to finally have in my hands because I've been wanting them so badly to finish up the entire collection, and that is TheIlluminae File. So I got the first book, which I do have in paperback, but I really wanted the hardback because of the way this series is written. It's written in like a multimedia format. There's lots of pictures as well as dossiers and instant message conversations and all sorts of like interesting and different ways to kind of write the story. And because of that, it's a lot easier, I think, to read in hardback. And also I really enjoy kind of like the hardback editions. I think they're really, really cool. And so I finally got Illuminae and Gemina, which is the second. I have Obsidio back here. I've had it for a while in hardback, and I really wanted to have matching hardbacks for all of them. If you haven't heard of this series before, it's probably the best sci-fi series I have ever read. Granted, I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but I absolutely adore this series. It's really hard to explain, to be honest, but it's just this fantastic, super fast-paced YA space just explosion of excitement. I absolutely love it. It's so fast-paced. We're following this girl and her ex-boyfriend and basically her entire livelihood. She's living on this planet, and the planet gets attacked, and they have to flee the planet, and they're trying to escape from this ship that is chasing after them that wants to just wipe them out. There's way more to the story than that, but I absolutely love the story. The multimedia format makes it so engrossing and engaging. I absolutely love it. So I highly recommend this series. They are chunkers, but they read very fast, and they are so fast-paced and fun. So if you're interested in sci-fi, I highly recommend this series. This is a great one to start out with. Speaking of sci-fi, and speaking of Amy Coffin and Jay Kristoff, who wrote the TheIlluminae File series, they also wrote the Aurora Rising series, or the Aurora Cycle series. This is the first book by Amy Coffin and Jay Kristoff, and I really love this series too. I was so excited when this series came out. The first 2 books are out. I've read them both, and I really love them. The writing style is very similar. It doesn't have the multimedia style, but it's very fast-paced still. There's a lot of witty dialogue. One of the things I really love about this story, we are following this sort of misfit crew who have been put together. They wouldn't have chosen each other, but they've been put together to be on a spaceship together, and they end up getting thrown into this situation where they basically have to save the universe. But what I really love about this series is that we have, I think, 6 or 7 different protagonists within this crew, and we actually get each of their perspectives. Every chapter is a different perspective from a different crew member, so we get to be in everybody's head. I love the fun and witty dialogue in this series. I love how fast-paced it is, and I love the excitement of it. It's so fun. Again, this is another great sci-fi series to read if you haven't read any sci-fi before and you're interested in getting into it. This is a great YA series to try out, and it's so much fun. So highly recommend that one as well. Next one, this is like my heart and soul creepy books. This is The Haunted by Daniel Vega. I absolutely adore this because this is one of the most terrifying books I have ever read. It's about a girl who moves to a town, and she moves into this big old house that her parents are going to renovate to make it their dream home. But when she goes to school, she finds out that the house that she moved into is the infamous house in the town. It's a town that all the kids dare each other to go into. People have committed suicide in the house. People have died in the house. Lots of horrific things have happened in the house, and the whole town is like, it's crazy haunted. And she's like, yeah, whatever, until she finds out it is. And it's just about a haunted house and what happens to her in this house. And it's terrifying, and I love it so much. It's a really short, quick read. There are 2 books out in the series. I'm not sure if there's going to be more than just the 2. I read the second one as well, and I really loved it, and I would love to add it to my collection too because it's so good. But this one was a blast to read, and it's so dang creepy. So if you want a really creepy haunted house story, I highly recommend this one. This one is so good to read during the Halloween season or any time of year because I love my spooky books. Okay, let's move on to some adult books here. I have some spooky ones in my adult books too, which will be really fun to talk about. First of which is a beast. You could kill somebody with this thing, and that is House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski. This book I barely know anything about. I just know that there are several people who said this is the most terrifying book they have ever read. It is a chonker. As you can maybe see, this book is a much larger book than most books are. It's like taller and wider than most books. It's super heavy. The pages feel like Bible thin. It's huge. Only thing I know about this at all is it's about a house that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. And that's all I know. And it's supposed to be really scary. I have this on my March TBR. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to it because I'm a little intimidated by it. And I do want to read it though, but I don't know if I'm going to get to it yet because I feel like this is the kind of book that's going to take me all month to read because it's massive. But I really want to read it because I'm hoping it's scary. But it's a really strange writing style. I mean, just even from a couple pages, just like there's really weird stuff in it. And it's just a lot of multimedia style stuff, and it's just really, I don't know, it looks interesting. There's a lot of footnotes and all sorts of stuff. I mean, oh yeah, and there's some parts too that are backwards and you have to read in front of a mirror. So they're like upside down and backwards, and it's really weird. So it's going to be a good time. We'll see when I get to it. Speaking of scary stories, this is one that I'm really excited to read, mainly because of just the way it looks. It's called Horrorstor by Grady Hendrix. If this looks like an IKEA catalog, that's because it's supposed to look like an IKEA catalog. It is about a haunted, basically IKEA store. It's not called IKEA, but it's like that type of store. And there's creepy things that's been happening in the store, and it's about some people trying to figure out what's going on in the store. Things are moving around and all sorts of things are happening, and it looks awesome. And the book is laid out like an IKEA catalog. It's fantastic. I'm really excited about it. I've heard a lot of good things, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun to read. So I love it when there's sort of like this sort of, not goofy, but just sort of like multimedia or just some sort of something that makes a book a little bit more special. And this one just looks like a lot of fun. So I'm excited to read that one. This one is one I'm not sure if it's YA or adult. I put it in the adult category, but it's called The God Game by Danny Tobey. And this one is about a immersive video game that you can become a part of, but I think in the God Game, you can actually die, like you lose your lives and then you actually die in real life. I think that's what it's supposed to be. I don't really know a whole lot more about it. I haven't read the description in a while, and I kind of don't want to refresh my memory because it's supposed to be a thriller and kind of scary, so I don't want to know too much going into this. But it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like almost like a creepy, disturbing Ready Player One or something like that. So I'm for that. I think it sounds like a lot of fun and kind of like a thriller sci-fi type thing. So I think it'll be a good time. Then I've got The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is supposed to be a Turn of the Screw retelling. I've heard a lot about it. It's supposed to be about this woman who ends up being a kind of like nanny or caretaker at a house for some kids. The kids are a little bit creepy, and the house is strange as well because the house is a smart house. And I think one of the kids ends up being killed and the nanny is blamed for it, and this is about her story, I think, trying to convince people that she didn't actually kill the kid. It's supposed to be Turn of the Screw, which I have not read, but is like a horror classic, so I'm interested to see what I think about this one, and it may get me interested in reading Turn of the Screw too. But I've heard a lot about this and a lot of people have really loved it, so I'm interested to get into that. Then this is one I really don't know anything about, but this is one that I also got at the book club Christmas party, and that is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And I know this is made into a movie, I believe, and I think it's just about a woman who disappears and them just trying to find her. I think it's a thriller. That's all I know. So I'm not overly interested in this, but I've heard a lot of good things. It's a really popular thriller, so I'll probably get to it at some point. But I think it would be fun to get to. I'm trying to get into more thrillers, so we shall see. All right, hang in there. We got a few more. All right, next is another, I guess, thriller mystery, and it's The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. This is a lot shorter book than I thought it would be, but it sounds really interesting. It's supposed to be in a historical thriller type situation. Apparently there was something, I think this is a real thing, that people would have things called silent companions. It was like this kind of like cutout of a person, and this woman, she had recently gotten married. She moves into her husband's manor, and then her husband passes away, and she ends up finding a silent companion in the home, which is just sort of like this cutout of a person, but the person looks a lot like her, I think, and also the person starts to like move and do creepy things. So that's really all I know about it, and it sounds creepy, and I like it. It's almost like a haunted doll type situation or something, so I think that sounds like fun. This one, if you have not read it, you should try it. It's Vicious by V.E. Schwab. I love this story. If you like villains, if you like superheroes, people with superpowers, if you like morally gray characters, this is a series for you. It's currently a duology. I think there's a third book coming out, which I'm a little bit sad about because this was originally written as a standalone, I believe. And I really love this first one, and I think it stands very well on its own. The second book I did like, but not as much as the first one. But this one I just absolutely adored. Let me back up. So in this story, we are following Victor and Eli. They are in college working on their graduate degree or doctorate degree. I can't remember which. And they both decide to study on something called EOs, or extraordinaries, people that have gained superpowers. And they try to study to figure out what causes these people to have superpowers. They figure out that it's from near-death experiences, so they start to experiment and figure out how they too can gain superpowers. It flashes forward to the future, to where they both have superpowers, but now they're not friends anymore. They're mortal enemies and trying to kill each other. This is such a fun story. It's very dark, very morally gray, definite trigger warnings for suicide, but it is so good and creepy. You root for these characters, even though they're horrible people, but you just root for them. And it's just so dark and disturbing and fantastic, and I love it. It's so much fun. I love villain origin story type things, and I love the fact that we're following mainly just villains. We're following people that have these superpowers, but they're bad guys, and I love it. It's so fun. So highly recommend that one. This is Lost Boy by Christina Henry. This is one of my favorite books of 2020. This is a retelling an origin story of Captain Hook, and boy is it dark. I love it so much. All I can say about this book, because I don't want to say too much and spoil the thing, but it's what if Captain Hook was a lost boy, Peter Pan's favorite lost boy, and then they ended up becoming mortal enemies. And it's fantastic and dark. Peter Pan is terrifying in this book. My goodness, you will hate him with everything you have, But I love this. I love Peter Pan so much. It was one of my favorite fairy tales growing up. And so this one was really, really fun to kind of this dark retelling of Peter Pan. It was a good time. So highly recommend. Definitely my favorite Christina Henry book. All right, I've got a few more left. These are kind of the randos. So this is one that I got for Christmas and I really love it so much. I still need to read through the rest of it. And that is Homebody by Joanna Gaines. This is a home decor book. This is, if you haven't seen Joanna Gaines before, she had the Fixer Upper TV show, which is now being rebooted and they're doing it again. And she just sort of has this really clean line, kind of farmhouse style that I really, really adore. And this book is just touching on every single different part of your home, kitchen, living room, entryway, bedrooms, everything, and just kind of going through different ideas of types of things you can do in those spaces, ways to make them more functional and more you. Also helps you kind of figure out what kind of design style that you have and that you like. It's just a way to kind of figure out how you want to design your home. And it's been a lot of fun to read through this. I've gotten some really cool ideas and it's just got gorgeous pictures in it of beautiful different styled homes, and it's a lot of fun to read through. So I've gotten about halfway, more than halfway through it, and I just need to read through the rest of it, and I've gotten some really cool ideas. So this is a fun book to read through for sure. Thank you to my mother-in-law for getting me this for Christmas. I absolutely love it. All right, lastly, this is the most recent purchase I made, and I'm so glad I made it because they are so stinking pretty. I feel like these books are on most people's shelves. They're kind of like the booktube books that you get, and that is the Puffin Bloom collection. This is 4 books. We've got Little Women, Anne of Green Gables, Little Princess, and Heidi. I do want to show you the covers if you just happen to have not seen them before. Again, I feel like everybody has these, but we've got Heidi. I mean, look at these covers. They're so pretty. Got Heidi, Little Princess, which is one of my favorite classics. I think I've seen the movie a whole bunch of times. I own the movie too, and I just adore that story. It's just one of my favorite stories. Got Anne of Green Gables, which again, gorgeous. Love Anne of Green Gables too. And this is the one I feel like I've seen the most, and that's because a lot of people have been reading Little Women because of the movie recently, but this is the edition of Little Women. It is massive, but it's so pretty. And I love it. I'm so glad I got this collection. It's gorgeous. I don't have a lot of classics on my shelf. I do collect some different editions of Alice in Wonderland because it's probably one of my favorite classics of all time. But I love finally having these on my shelf because these are some of my favorite classics from my childhood that I don't own. So I'm glad to have these and to kind of read them again and also have them on my shelf for my daughter to read one day, hopefully. So those are all the books that I've gotten in the past several months. Thank you for hanging in there if you're still here. This has been a long book haul, but I'm really excited to own these books. There's several of them I haven't read. I'm excited to read. There's several of them that are some of my favorites now that I'm excited to have on my shelves for my friends to borrow, for me to reread, for my daughter to read one day. So this is fun. I love doing book hauls, and I think I've gotten way too many books within the past few months, but oh well. What are some books that you have purchased recently? Or let me know if there's some of these books that you've read, especially the ones I haven't read yet. Let me know what you think about them. I would love to hear. On this side of the video is my logo. If you click on that, you can subscribe to my channel and follow me on my book journey. On this side of the video over here is a suggestion for another video if you want to watch another one right now. But thank you so much for watching. You rock, and don't forget to keep reading. Bye!